Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this roundtable session. This is the second session today, hold up to the first session, moderated by Iseda. It's very interactive, but today we are going to be looking at stakeholder collaboration and community empowerment. My name is Adewunmi. I am the partner co-founder of Iseda Consulting. It's an impact-driven consulting firm where we focus on sustainability. And today I'm going to let my panelists give opening remarks, give a brief introduction, and then go straight to questions. Over to you, everyone.
So I have to check my time. So my name is Abimbola, Atitebi, as I was earlier introduced, General Counsel at Nestoil. I didn't really prepare anything, but the topic speaks for itself in terms of why we're here. It's been a journey since the enactment of the Petroleum Industry Act and the introduction of the concept of host communities development trust. For me, and the way we see it is that the concept of host communities and resource extraction and development goes to a deep social issue that every single player and stakeholder has to be involved in terms of dealing with those social issues and making sure that as we extract, as we develop, as we play in those fields, we are cognizant of sustainability, the impact on the communities that are in those areas, how it can be carried along, and how we can ensure that our businesses, our commercial activities takes account of the impact of those communities and their development. So thank you for having me here, and I look forward to a very insightful session.
Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Doctor. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited to be here. It's 10 years of getting my sleeves rolled up and getting into it with the community. 20 years of stakeholder relations, stakeholder relations, management, and corporate communication. 10 years actively in doing, dealing with all the communities, making friends across all the divide. I think overall the need for sustainable community development, where we have a concession for 30 companies. It's been an interesting journey, and I'd like to share most of it with you in this session. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone again. I'm Uzor, and I'm with the Anti-Relational Sciences Manager for Petroleum Industry Act. Today, I'm dealing with address and letter and time. Some of my colleagues are here. I'm very sure to mention that thanks to the journey during my lifetime, I've introduced the virtual work in several international development organizations. GTZ, now GIZ, European Union, National Aid, and others. And I'm excited when it happens to anything development, because it goes at the core of our humanity. Because we need to make progress and we continue to make progress. So development in whatever sphere, especially positive one that can affect the people, is I'm always excited about it. And just to note too that collaboration is also one of my top objectives. In the sense that apart from intra-collaboration or partnership within the community, I also am a good advocate of, I'm an advocate of external collaborations, partnerships, which in this case, as the Petroleum Industry would involve not just dwelling on what comes from the 13 companies, but also just like Dr. Brown mentioned, collaborations with international organizations in terms of deepening the development process in our communities. And also to add that I'm also an advocate of democratization of the development process, which in this case will relate to the different layers that have already been enshrined in the PIA. Okay? That's like management and accountability. That's, to me, the core of my function. So, I thank you all of you. I thank NPRC and the organizers for having me. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Idike. I'm the manager for community investment and sustainable relations in Rwanda. I'm charged with simulation, planning, and implementation of our CSR initiatives. And more recently, the operationalization of the HCDT, which is taking more of my role recently. Because we work in about 294 communities with 9 local governments. I was able to put this in 14 institutes. We work in Gaza, Rivers, Delta, Igbo states. And of course, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that we're actually having this discussion 4 years after to ensure that this perhaps being the last stroke we have at attaining new development of the Niger Delta is still the situation. I think this is not just an operational goal or my job. This is something I take personal, and I really wish it succeeds. And I'd like to join all my fellow panelists and every stakeholder here to see how we can come together and see how we can move this beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all the panelists. Something I came to say before we start was that I'm actually also a lawyer. And one of the first tasks I had was to review PIB and then join my law firm. And it's funny that fast forward almost 20 years now, we're here today discussing this law. And today, this panelist, we're going to explore stakeholder engagement, the role of collaboration. And as you read from each and every one of the panelists, we have representatives we have settlers on here, we have regulators, and we also have people that have vast experience in community relations. So it should be a very insightful discussion. We've heard challenges. The first session was on challenges. Now we're going to listen to how we can engage, how to deal with, and how to engage the host community. My first question we're going to Mr. Abimbola Atitebi, not because you are the first person, but just because I started with you. Mr. Abimbola, we're going to be looking at collaborative models, and it's very important I go back to the discussion where a lot of people actually ask questions around how can the host community work with the state and the local government, how can they all collaborate? And I would want you to look at that in answering this question. So my first question for you would be, what collaborative models works best for effective HCDT execution, and also considering potentially state and local government as well? Even though you also mentioned that we don't have to put any consideration, but it's also important that we get your perspective as well.
Thank you. So, one of the key things we have to bear in mind, and I will start with the inclusion of the base and regional government, as the local and state government, is whatever we're doing with the community and the trust, it has to be fit for purpose. One of the things that one of the shortcomings of the previous model was everybody just did something for follow-up, right? You go to school, you take pictures, you go dig a borehole, you take pictures, and you could dig a borehole where perhaps the state government already has a water channel into everybody's homes. So, while specifically speaking, law doesn't mandate that we carry along these regional entities. It's good to work with them. It's good to work with them and work with the communities to also know what is fit for purpose. In working with the communities, one of the things I advocate, right, is to have an inclusive model that works with specific demographics. And it's a good thing that a lot of community relations people are here. One of the feedback we get from the business end is, oh, there are different sets of people in the community. So today you're having a discussion with the elders, and tomorrow you find out it's the youth that have critical issues brought on them. So an inclusive model, personally, that deals with every demographic, the youth, the women, the traditional institutions, the elders, everybody put together. The law gives us a base. It's a thorn of field, right? There's so much other things that we can add to the process to make sure it's a success. We're not just ticking boxes. As I said when I started, it goes to a deep social issue that we're trying to correct and we're trying to work with to ensure that businesses continue as intended. The country moves forward as intended, trying to ramp up production and whatnot. And at the same time, back to where I started from, we're doing things that are fit for purpose. What does community A need? What does community B need? What works across 10 sets of community? There's also central collaboration, right? And we're not working in silos. So we don't sit in our own space saying, oh, we're working and we're good with our community, and then the other person is not necessarily, or they're facing certain challenges. So that collaboration between set laws, the regulator, and various communities, sort of like sharing notes and seeing how this could work. And that goes to even sharing notes with the regional and local government as well.
Great, thank you very much, Abimbola. What I would take from exactly what you said is mainly inclusive governance, and it's also interesting that you mentioned working closely with other sectors as well, because one of the things that has been discussed here today was sectors working in silos and everyone doing different projects. I think there was a gentleman that came and said that there are 17 balls. This just to emphasize the importance of collaboration, everyone working together, sharing knowledge, and inclusive governance, and obviously shared accountability as well. Thank you for that, Abimbola. My next question is going to Mrs. Uzor. She's the regulator. I don't know if I should go through the same strategy before where we left the regulator as well for the last question. So should I go over you? I'll finish with you. So are you okay with that? And then I will go over to Dr. Kenneth then. Okay, so Dr. Kenneth, my question for you will be, in what ways do you think the HCDTs in what ways can the HCDTs be structured and managed to ensure that the host communities are genuinely included in decision making and development planning? And I want you to speak to this from experience, because some will say that it's already clear in the law, they're supposed to be, part of the BOT, the advisory, but I want you to give a practical answer to this question.
Thank you, Lara. Just to add that, I need to fill in because the law is very clear in terms of structuring the HCDT. Most have believe that this is the first time that we're having sort of multi-layer structures, and we go to the roots of development processes. What do I mean by that? Section 242 talks about relate to the BOT, 247 management committee, and 248 advisory committee. So there are already structures. But what I have to add is that it's not just about having structures. Okay? But how to manage these structures to effective results. And it doesn't just it takes input from the very first time you're doing commencing your enlightenment program. The quality of the enlightenment program will also go to determine the quality of the recruitment process that will populate, or the people that will populate the structures. And that way, in the long run, determine the process of the HCDT. When we just give an example, for instance, when we down there, I have to give you a small example to do from how previous offense. of enlightenment program. We go to the communities, interface with the traditional rulers and the other gatekeepers, and then let them know about what you have in mind. And then you also now begin to cascade down to the general population, dealing with different population groups, okay? Preaching the same message, advocating what is all about, what they stand to benefit from this process. And you have to emphasize how this process was different or indifferent from what used to be. Because we have community development associations, we have CPCs and the rest of them. So why is this one different? And as a development model, as an interface model, how the HCDT different from GMO and all the things that have happened in the past? So we have to really kind of enlighten the community populace about these issues and then be able to highlight it. And in terms of the development planning, okay, it's also clear. I must note at this moment that kudos to partners of the HCDT, particularly, because they did a good work. Okay? As somebody in this sector for a while, and somebody in the sustainable development sector, I know some of the challenges with which they are trying to implement development activities. And that seems to have been taken care of in the PIA and the HCDT. And also to note that what are these challenges? Okay? Maybe it's the challenges of democratizing the development process. Because before now, we have issues, situations where there are certain people we classify as benefit factors. We just try to, they exist in every community, whatever other. They try to hijack whatever is coming to the community. But through the process, this multi-layer structure that the HCDT currently we now have education, even the remotest person, even the remotest community within your operational area can still contribute, can still, have a voice in your development process. And this is what we've been advocating. And also to know that the platform is not just a platform that could be dissolved. The law, the legislation was not free in terms of dissolving any HCDT organ or structure. So that gives some kind of assurance even to the community players that look, we don't have us today and then. Like I said earlier on, in the recruitment process, that will determine the success of the whole process. Because by the time you go out there and maybe assemble some showcases level to get, and then eventually go to go project and from the HCDT organs, especially starting with the POT. Maybe your failure has already started. But if you're able to reach out widely, the people will be able to know who will be fit for the respective organs or structures that should make up the HCDT. And this is where you need to be quite careful. Okay, in terms of the management process, that's where it becomes a bit interesting. One thing is to have a structure, another thing is for the structure to work. And how will the HCDT work? Very simple. Okay? There are provisions already. Okay? We have to remind ourselves that each HCDT has a constitution that practice activity. I hope we are aware of that. And strict adherence to the provisions of that constitution will help in the management process of the HCDT. Okay? And also to add that the organs, in terms of the activities of the HCDT organ, needs to be reported. Because by the time you organize annual forum, maybe media forum, to enlighten your constituents that you care about the activities in the HCDT, that way you receive feedbacks. Okay? That way you have a voice. So, if there are the feedbacks to be basically negative, and you can take on board whatever you get towards ensuring that you perform better. And also, you need, I'm talking about the constitution, let me also state here that the secretaries of the respective HCDTs should be mandated, they should be the custodian of this HCDT constitution, because they are more or less, remember they are appointed by the Seplat. And because they are appointed by the Seplat, they have to abide by the tenets of whatever, the tenets of the law or the constitution of the HCDT. That way, they won't be subject to the manipulation by the POT members some of the things that should be closed. And finally, just to add that, like I did mention, I'm an advocate of important partnerships in terms of the development process. And the idea of communities just dwelling on the 3% complex, I think it's not right. That's my perspective. We should be able, government has been given to the youth assessment or the CDA that came from the youth assessment process. We should be able to market that document. Visit your state government, visit the state planning commission, visit some of these places, and let them know that, look, in this year, we have to so. The Mr. Legislator, please, can you help us attract cases in our development plan? How can you help us with that? And that way, they will be cautious because let me also tell us at this moment that so we will talk about corruption in Nigeria and the rest of them. When people have excess money that they don't know what to do, just like giving somebody loan, they don't know what the person needs. That gives room for loan diversion. Then in this case, if our government people have more than enough and they don't even know what to do with the money, then the chances are that they likely may begin to look at things that are not really aligned with what the people need. But if a HCDT should appoint their legislator, appoint their commissioner of education, sir, we have this, can you help us with this? Okay? This way we have this. They still keep the OPEX. And then they can declare that OPEX by another thing, one and sent to our county government. So the OPEX, 10% of it shouldn't be the end. Okay? That's what we need to continually make. Okay? So this is just to kind of conclude that beyond what we get from the companies, because the increases in the oil drilling activities in the Niger Delta, the companies are become to the government. We tend to neglect even the government. Okay? We tend to ignore them. We don't feel that they have responsibilities. This shouldn't be. Okay? This shouldn't be. The HCDT should champion it. The advocate of the people, the advocate of the development process in their communities. Okay? While collaborating with the companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I would go to Dr. Maria now. Could you please just quickly tell us, not quickly, just you have some time, I don't want to be biased. Could you please tell us what would you say are the key factors that ensure long-term sustainability of the HCDT? One of the things we've all talked about here is the fact that it's ownership, community-led, right? And this is like a strong point in ensuring that it's sustainable and it's sustainability. But we also want to understand and hear from you the key factors that can actually ensure this long-term sustainability.
Development space. This is one word that deals with development, sustainability. What does it really mean? There is a lot of definition. And most people say putting the needs of the present generation and in addition to that in the future. So it depends on how you look at it. But in terms of long-term sustainability of HCDT implemented projects, I think the first set of analysts and indeed this panel has mentioned most of the key points or aspects that you need to ensure sustainability. What I would just do is to bring them to the fore and then possibly give examples, of how we can make this work. So, to me, a project would be sustainable if it has basically two key evidence. One is self-sustainable. And by that I mean this project can outlast the funding. It can sustain itself. And also that the project would have a long-term value creation. And by this I mean the whole community can continue to enjoy the benefits this project has to give. So let's go for that. And so if you wish to attain this form of sustainability, there are many things you need to put in place. And first is just like everything in life.
when the NPRC said we should incorporate this trust, and it was 12 months, particularly for those that have existing facilities. It wasn't even 12 months, it was 6 months that we had. And all we had to do was quickly rush, get economic consultants to get all these assessments and do everything properly. We had a implementation plan, but how many of us really had sustainability plans for these projects? There were plans. We did a risk assessment. We didn't even know the amount that was coming to this community at the time. So the CDP that came out of it had some questions. Because if I'm trying to prevent something without knowing how much that, let alone having a sustainability plan. So I hope that in the next round of risk assessment that we done, because it's expired in 5 years, we're able to produce sustainability plan. And we need to be intentional about it from the beginning. Because if you don't get it from the beginning, you will get it. The other part is something that we've mentioned here time and time again, and I think maybe controversial result is partnership. You cannot avoid that collaboration. Granted, the sharing information, state or local government, there is no way you can ensure a project will be sustainable if you don't partner with this key institutional sustainability. So, there's a difference between doing a work project, in which all you need to do is to maintain what's well, as opposed to trying to deliver healthcare to your population. You need to think about it in a different way. And that's why we have structured our trust in such a way that we cluster along cultural affinity, tribe, and language, but we never cross the state boundaries. Because all the projects that are meant to be implemented need to be aligned with the state and local government development plans. And that's where the collaboration comes in. You cannot do an implement a project that is against what the state has planned for. You cannot go against the state education and development plan simply because they are funded through an institute. You cannot walk into a state-owned school and renovate it because you have the funds. You just need to partner with these people. So, they do not have the statutory powers to actually involve themselves directly in the affairs of the HCDT. But I believe strongly, state government, local government, need to be tied along for us to have true sustainable development. Otherwise, like you said, we have several water stakeholders on the place, we have several health parties on the place, and none of them truly work. People when I sometimes go to say, immediately since we have created a fourth tier of government, whether state, local government, and HCDT. So this fourth tier was not designed to handle development of the state sector. And so you need to align, collaborate, and partner with this institution. Aside from the environmental agencies, of course, all the government agencies, the sectors, and all the stakeholders in the place. That is my next aspect of the choice of sustainability, which is participation. So we mentioned that in particular times, but if the people in which you intend to be the beneficiaries of this project do not actively participate in the process, then there is no way to succeed. There's just no way. When people are invested in something, they ensure it works. If I, as a farmer, donated land to the cost of a project, I want to see it to fruition. I want to see it work. You can't estimate what people, local communities do to the project. Regardless of whether there's time money or not. There could be land, there could be experience, there could be labor, free of charge. People can bring this to the table. And these are things that organize people to make sure they're interested, to put an eye on it. How much do we have? What are we doing with it? What projects are we doing? And to follow it through to make sure it works. Then we talk about capacity development. By the way, the greatest success we had for one of our trusts was the community already had a form of self-help program in place. They already were doing things as a body. And now we are only affordable by giving them the funds. So by the time we funded them, the first thing we were ready to have 100 projects. And by the time I was scared, I don't know where this started from. But they already have the blueprint of how things work. Now you're giving them the funds. It makes things easy. So taxation cannot be overemphasized in any way. Then you talk about capacity development, which is very, very key. We all feel, well, we don't want to ascertain retirement sectors to incorporated trustees, and yes, they can do it. It's not so. person from anywhere and expect them to think about something meaningful. It's almost overburdening them with something that they don't have the capacity. And that's what I think we didn't do. We didn't focus so much on building capacity because there was so much pressure on the Seplat to now think about that. Maybe the next round we will think about focusing on capacity building for the BOT members and the management committee that is the energy room. This is very key. Even though the law provides for technocrats, we have the project commissioners, finance experts, and so you also need to train them. Like what I thought I knew about the job, and you needed a lot of training, even though most of the self-training. And this PRA thing is new, and you need to build that capacity. And you will retain that capacity. Otherwise, to slow down the day, I know there's great plans and local plans now, who would not be successful. I give examples of certain things that trust have done because they didn't factor in the issue of sustainability. So I have for a community that says all the lack is access to energy. We have connected. And so we want to install a power generator to power the community and supply light, just like the IoT we do at the time. But we need to factor in the various costs for that generator. How will you procure diesel? How do you ensure these ones and supply every household? You didn't think about it. But they were just thinking about the left side there that my community would really give me that much credibility if I provide this much needed for myself. So essentially you need to point them to, and when they see, they start thinking in a different way and things can now take you. They also have a trust that that everyone was healthcare. And they were wondering why I told you that way. When it was a lofty or a nice idea, I was in HCDT and they had a fund for it. And then the first question I asked was, okay, so you are building this health center. When you finish, who gives the cooking? And they were like, we'll use that next year something. And okay, fine. And who's going to take care of the running costs? Who's going to staff it? Who's going to provide jobs and consumables? And then they got them. But if they said, okay, maybe you approach our government. If you are approach the government, strongly beginning. And be sure that this was a governmental plan. And we approach the government saying, we will bring capital fund, which is the starting of the infrastructure. You provide the consumables and the staffing. So I need to go boring away from the government. And you're not done with paying the doctor, you can't get doctors from his market, doctors are in place like to seize. They will hire abroad or sitting out here doing something else. But if you get the nurses on the payroll of the government, if you get community health extension workers, that will come and provide that health care. The health center is not health care, doesn't mean free health care. Most of the health centers will do those people, don't go around the place, doing proper budgets or accommodation for people that we have. So we need to think in a different way, collectively. We start to begin this plan, and then we need to instill this in the stakeholders now, which are the BOTs, Manager Government Committee. Then we lastly need to be very practical. We don't need to be practical. I always think that much money don't have. So we need to look at appropriate solutions that work for us. We don't have to go for the high quality stuff. I have a job I want to build a gas turbine. And I told them how to blow up your gas turbine and everything else. That's the truth. Because you are not knowledge with managing such complexities and you cannot even afford it. You might have the money now, but don't build castle in the air. Do something practical that you know can last a long time. Start small, build it, and you will get there. And I think responsibility for us is a collective responsibility. It's collective. It's not the sector alone, it's not the HCDT. I will start after years of changing this stuff. I don't have anything to say. My PhD report is what I have done in community. And I used to have a vision of what we do. But now, everything we do is by extension what we do. So I want to see it work. And I want to see it where we are settled in the communities that are the beneficiaries. And they will look at all those that are confident to ensure this thing is sustainable.
Thank you very well said. Thank you so much. Really, because I'm also working for sustainability. The one thing I want to emphasize, and I'm looking straight at Engineer Kalimo, and also I have this colleague as well. I want thing, a few people have said this before you said, apart from collective responsibility, I think one thing we need to leave this place with engineer is capacity building for the host. Now, the framework or the inspiration behind this law is, whether we like it or not, I think we need to sustainability, but we need to talk about sustainability. That's the difference between CSR. Community social responsibility is today, this project will not be there in 10 years, 15 years, we can argue from now to next year, but when you're thinking of, when you start engaging community, giving them ownership, we're already seeing the benefits. In fact, the success stories should be said, because one thing you said that nobody is even talking about, and maybe first judiciary can own this, is we've seen peace, stability, reduction of vandalism. These things are very important. And why? Because we're engaging the community. But it doesn't stop there. How can we ensure that we are also helping with capacity building? Can we put aside funds for the capacity building of this host to ensure that we're not bringing someone that has no clue whatsoever on infrastructure to be on a BOT? You understand what I'm saying? We need to ensure that to see the long term, to ensure it has sustainable impact, we need to ensure that we provide this capacity building for the host, and it's all for the Petralon in here as well. So thank you very much, Dr. Benga. I'm now going to go to our regulator. It's not a difficult question. It's pretty straightforward as well. What did you say, ma'am? Okay. So, my question for you will be, I'm going to just summarize it in the shortest way. Okay, so how can the HCDTs alongside strategic CSR, right, be leveraged to deepen sustainable development in those communities, and what shifts are needed in energy sector to make this work? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? What I'm trying to say is, what is the role that HCDT plays in promoting sustainable development in those communities, and also how can strategic CSR complement the HCDTs to drive this long-term sustainability? So, okay, I think I'll try and work around it. So thank you, Lara. Thank you. So from where we sit, we have experience across the 30 companies that we see the constitutional 30 assets. HCDT is the welcome development for us when it comes to community development. Just something very, very quickly. And so I said HCDT serves as a critical tool for fostering inclusive and sustainable development in Nigeria's oil and gas host communities, and that is very critical for us to note at this point. Now, we went on with the presentation to tell us what we're covered for. We had the for the big national assets, we have the POCAG. We have so many things to try and develop for these communities, because half of the time when the engineers come and say something is happening in the community, I come over and say, operations can't go on if we do not settle the community. Everything we do in the industry is based on the community. The community needs to be happy with you. The community needs to be carried along before you're able to achieve your operational opportunities or operational strategies or whatever you want to achieve. Now, for HCDT, what it's done is it's giving us the legal framework for CSR and put the community in the driver's seat. I remember years ago, Mr. Ken was this slide with us on news, and he had a position paper that he presented to us that was on PPP, partnership with the community. How are we going to bring the community to be on the driver's seat? For deploying community development projects, we also had a strategy that was called the project management strategy. So these are all things we're trying to work with in NEWS LNPC to try and put the community in the driver's seat. There's a lot of grievances. Even though we do the needs assessment in collaboration with them and companies and consultants that are very good with doing needs assessment, and you go into the community, you see their needs, but they culturally, socially, you rather want other things. And then you have to draw them back to the sustainability part of what needs to be done in their community. So you give up a little, but try to push them back into what they really need to be doing. So HCDT has helped us to get them to see things the way they ought to be seen. Now, on the flip side, there is also the need of CSR outside the HCDT. Because we recognize HCDT is still in its infancy. That there are other things that the community is not seeing at this point. And for you to have FTA, freedom to operate, you must do those things and help them to achieve those things so that you can do what you need to do. I'll give you an example. There was a road that I think Water Street was on that road as well. Seplat was on that road as well. It was an access road. Now, who is going to fix the road? So we have to bring all the companies together to collaborate and finish that and do that road. Take this one is another project that we have, which is the 7 kilometer road, all the road, 7 bridges. We had NNPCRIF, we had NDPC, we had the state government to finish that road. So HCDT will help us come welcome development. It's pivotal in what we're going to do in the next, I don't know how many years, but to see us reduce operational infections because the community is fully engaged in delivering development to their people. However, what we're hoping for is that the regulator, the conversation here with the regulator, allows, or not allows, is the other word. We've had some meetings with the TS, right? There are some parts of the HCDT that need to be tweaked to deliver the aspiration based on the challenges we see. I hear my panelists talk about capacity development. Yes, that was one of the conditions, one of the issues we were having. Now, who forms the capacity development? Is it the asset or the facility? But there's a giving clarification here now that is going to be part of the HCDT cost, but modest, right? Now, so there are things that the HCDT is going to deliver, and all we have been saying to the assets is it's in the infancy. We have to continue to hold hands with the community. Community is going to get there. Community is going to get there. We've had instances where for viewings and discussions, what we usually would do is hold hands with the community and the Seplat, which is the company, to deliver based on the limitations of the NDA. For instance, we won't build new schools. We will increase capacity of existing schools to take in more students because we can't employ more teachers. We will build more hospitals. We will increase the capacity of existing hospitals to take in more patients. So there's always going to be that collaboration with the NDA. And that's what we're trying to do with the background of the profession with the Seplat, to tell the HCDT that these are novel ideas, but however there are limitations. And when we get to that, we will be able to cross them. Thank you.
And where I think some may argue that there is a thin line between CSR and HCDT, and the main difference is the frame is legally backed. Now, that's what HCDT. So when you say some things should still be CSR, some things should still be HCDT, isn't it like
more or less the same, but now because there's a legal backed, it's legally backed, and there's more structure in place, and there's provision for co-ownership model. Within that, the only major difference between a CSR and HCDT, or why we still tagging some CSR projects, and like, do you know what I'm trying to say?
So HCDT is legally is the legal framework. Before it used to be voluntary. CSR is voluntary. The CSR is a responsibility for a socially responsible company. Meaning, so what HCDT does, what this has come to do is mandatory. However, the company will advocate that the companies have extra funding for CSR and might speak to their brand identity or other things around the community, area of operation that might not be the focus of the HCDT. I'll give you an example. If you give the HCDT their funding and they go on and do what is in their community development plan, and there are no rules, several rules to get there. So, who's going to come there? Why are you going to empower them economically? I went to some installation somewhere, somewhere in Abimbola, right? And the whole drive from the major road to that facility is, you could tell that I could see briquettes, hamlet briquettes, right? The road is very good, but people are not tapping into that opportunity. But they have the HCDT, they're dealing with other issues. So I, as the concessionaire, I'm worried about their economic development, right? That might not be their focus at that time. As I see them building hospitals, renovating hospitals and renovating schools. So the idea for us as news is there's still opportunity for CSR. It's not a double D. It's for your business, because it might be for your optic, or some people it will be optic. But we strongly believe that the HCDT and CSR helps you to be in the hearts and minds of the community, knowing that for our industry, any shot in costs the nation a lot of money, and we want to mitigate that any which way we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Uzor, for the question. I wanted us to have 1 minute closing remark, and I'm looking at the time. I was going to stop at 4 minutes. So if Dr. Uzor, if you go ahead, no closing remarks, so can I have an additional 4 minutes? Okay. No, keep going. I would like to hear your feedback. I like to hear different perspectives. Yeah.
I know when she was talking, I'm sure that some of our colleagues will be on, because earlier it was rated 10%, 2% HCDT funding, and the rest of it. However, so those are additional costs, to the expenses that companies are already running, with the CSR issues. However, it all depends. What I would say is that it all depends on the DOT culture of the company. Okay? Because it should be voluntary. Okay? It should be purely voluntary. It shouldn't be something that should be mandated for companies to undertake. The program we just finished is really the paper in the last week or thereabouts. It's called a Future Leaders Program. Okay? So the undergraduates are on their program. We're giving them ₦1 million each per session. Now, they are not even from the community. This is something we did on our own. Okay? And then, it's our brand. Because right from the onset, the local capital program is such that we have to give back to the company. So before the HCDT, we were already championing CSR, taking it and widening it. However, with the HCDT, this has become a kind of additional cost. But if the company, if the board decides that, this is okay for us to do, right, so be it, then maybe it shouldn't be mandatory.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? So if you would like to remark about the follow-up question. Okay, so we have to
Yes, I'll try to wrap it up. I think the good thing about the this panel is it kind of cuts across an intersection of community relations specialists and someone like me who sits at the intersection of business, legal, and operational risks. Most times when we sit together in these types of things, it looks like we all know the answers, right? And then the question is, why are we still where we are? There has to be a connect. He spoke about how HCDT is turning into another tier of government. And then we spoke about things like capacity and sustainability of projects. The truth is, for example, if you speak to a government official or like a politician, he will tell you that a project I can see will earn me more praise than sending a couple of people to a technical school. We're falling into that same trap where the folks who are doing community relations will come to the business angle and tell the board that, you know what, let's train 50, 100 guys in plumbing, in woodworks, in this. Let them have things to do so that they're busy and not just breaking our pipelines, right? But it looks good for me in the boardroom to say, I'm just going to build a Francisco and take pictures. So there has to be that sincerity in terms of our outlook as to what we're doing. This is a business enabler. It may look good for you today, but tomorrow, as you said, if there's a shutdown, it's for some corporate entities, it's almost a calamity. So we need to be able to get to that intersection where we tell ourselves that, look, we're not here for the optics. We're not here to become another tier of government, and we're not just here for those high-polluting or big-looking distance. There's so many things we can do. Sending children to school, training adults in terms of technical skills, which could even end up serving the companies themselves in future. So, quite apart from the CSR, which, as I said, would talk about your ESG outlook as a company, in terms of how we deal with HCDT and how the stakeholders, internal and external, look at things, we have to conceptualize this model where we know that what we're doing is driving that change and achieving that social objective why this entire model was created in the first place.
Thank you very much. We have to be the Kenneth right now. Thank you. Thank you. I was hoping I would have to thank for a round of applause for our panelists once again. I was just hoping that the session was revealing and enlightening enough. Okay, thank you to all our panelists and our moderator. Just a few housekeeping. If you'd like to know more about first edition and A2 that is the organizers of this event, this is put around the room, so you can just scan this QR code and it will take you to the right place for the relevant information. Alright, Q&A. Thank you. I just saw, before I said Q&A, like 3 hands are going up. So the session was revealing and engaged. So let's do again from the back, because you see, many times in public speaking, people at the back feel left out. So I'll start from the back. Please raise your hands very well. You will be number 1. Please. Number 2. Going. Number 3. Going. Sorry. Number 4. Who else? Number 4. Yeah? Okay. So, as I said, so we are panelists. So, would you like to just Curious. Okay, so number 5. Excellent. Alright, so the first question, number 1, please come forward. We would like to have you informed because then oh, by the way, we'd like to thank all let's thank all our online audience. Thank you for being there. I was hoping we could get questions and reactions from you, but somehow I don't know how the technology will enable us. So please come. So that they will feel part of the room, please can we give a round of applause for all those that have been online streaming? Okay. Your name, your organization, and your question. You have the option of directing the question to whomever you choose, but you will back up with your own way. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Idike, I'm a radio presenter with Student FM. I'm also a book vendor. My question was to maybe very to make mention of increase the capacity of schools instead of building more schools, increase the capacity of hospitals instead of building more hospitals. So how realistic is that? Because people are building more schools in the country, how many more private universities, and they are still springing up. So how do you, is that, how is that point you made realistic in our country? Because more private universities are coming up, the contracts are always rolling. So why are we not building that capacity? The same goes with the hospital. Government officials are traveling out of the country for hospital care. So I wanted to know if that is what she said is how it's going to be attainable. Thank you, Mr. Idike. I guess I want to go into politics. I am one of those that like to see your work very evident and not. Okay, that's number 1. We'll take everything together. Number 2 is the lady in red. Don't sing the song. I said it, somebody just
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the panelists for the insightful session. I have a comment and a question. So my comment is that talking about like the other area of CSR is HCDT, and Mr. Lara said in the previous panel. So he said that he used the word, he said, I mean, it's not charity, and shareholders are particular about returns on income. And so I think it will be a mix of everything, a mix of the fact that the optics are there for the business and for the shareholders to know that they are contributing a quota, while we are also here to make real impact. So my question is that, is there a way state government can be involved in needs assessment if eventually we may need them for sustainable development or capacity building? Is there a way at that level when we start the needs assessment, is there a way we can collaborate with them, our sectors can engage them to see that the project they are proposing can be something that would outlast or it can be self-sustaining? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 3. Oh, yes. Number 4, of course, the biggest masquerade dances last.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Magdalene Senior from the Western region. Okay, so I don't even know if it's a comment or a question. Okay, but so for CSR, for our own host communities, they see CSR. So, CSR, and then there's the HCD. So, then distracting. I'm sorry. So, I'll just give you an example. We had this session with our host communities, and we went through everything that's taken care of by the host community trust. When they came up to say, no, this is CSR. So they expect CSR in addition to the host community trust, but they see it as an entitlement. They don't see it as something we could just do as an add-on. And this 3%, it's still a bit new. So everybody is trying to see, okay, what can we do with this? What is happening here? So I feel this is my personal opinion. This is my beginning opinion. Let the 3% thing still first, because they still call for 50 payments. And these things should only be taken care of by this 3%. But they still call for all these things. The community wants them in addition and see it as a right. So I don't know. What can the commission do about this? What can we in this room do about it so that it is clear that anything we do is an add-on, but this is what the law says, and this is what we are entitled to. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sincere apologies for the distraction. It was a good one. Because if you had stayed there, the speaker is revolting because the mic is back in trouble. That's why you're hearing that sound. And I think it's close to move for question. Okay. So, as you have noticed, the organizers are very deliberate about not cutting questions and taking all the responses. The reason is it will not be a roundtable if that's not done. And that is why it's important to remember 6. No, we are number 5 because the biggest masquerade was done since. This is number 4 here. So it will be number 5, and then we'll still have engineer. Thank you very much. Okay, so still on CSR, the here is precedence, we should all remember, that the CSR initially was discretionary at the onset, but at some point it became mandatory because the committee will force you to do it. And that's why we came to the hardware that we came in before the HCDT. So I don't think we want to go back to that discretionary that will be made mandatory. Today I was responding to a letter from the particular community asking us how many number of students will give scholarship this year, what their Christmas and Xmas will be, and some other things. So if you understand that, how will you earn it? So that is here. In as much we would love to do that. Number 2, the need assessment. Our perspective will be with NPLC on about 6 CDP reviews. A lot of things. The risk assessment is meant to be made for the communities. For most times, we don't want to interfere. But I tell you, there's no to interfere. Things like appeasement. Okay? You know what appeasement means, the CDP. If you have not people, you might want to flag them out again. But more importantly, I will talk about collaborating with local government area. The committee wanted to construct a real statement, but they need to bribe the local government to get permission to construct that road. But we said, no, if you're not allowing them to do that, then we'll move from the project. say this just to put it to NPLC, but there needs to be done on that sector. So now we have the first 5 years. We can take a lot of things, that we need to improve on in the next round. And we shouldn't leave the needs assessments to the committee. Like somebody said, there's good to, okay, this is a good one. We need to collaborate with the NGOs. In as much as we don't want to interfere, but we need to engage them. We need to have that harmonization of projects within the state, so that we don't duplicate or we don't absorb them of not using the fund they only have been marked for those projects. Okay? So please, seriously, we would love to take note of the gaps identified in this first round so that we can build on it in the next round. Please, we will assist in identifying those gaps so that we can pass it on. Thank you.
If you want to say you're a panelist. Okay, again, it's for the non-directed questions, usually you're not on the panel. Because you are, as I said, the big masquerade. So please have made them come today. But yet, please, that QR code, this QR code is for feedback. It's the first of its kind that we're having this roundtable that brings all critical stakeholders together. And I think it was, I'm not sure, from the panel session that continuous education needs to be done again and again. And so we see the importance of occasions like this. And if I recall, when the chairman of Test Fiduciary spoke, he said this is the first. It means that there will be more. So, first fiduciary and AO2 law would appreciate your feedback on ways to improve the next edition and then the next and then the next. Okay, Ezra. Oh, you see, where is everything? Your name and your organization.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much to the panelists, and thank you to AO2 Test Fiduciary for this opportunity. My name is Adewunmi. I'm from River Group. We're settlers. I'm interested in the process of setting up a HCDT. Yeah. The question I had was on, maybe it's just direct insights on settler collaboration. So I'm sure that no two HCDT will have the same set of communities. Well, in some instances, there might be certain overlaps where there are communities, maybe in the HCDT where that comprises of 4 communities, maybe there are 2 here overlap with another settler of HCDT. How do we then prioritize in getting, I don't know if the commission can assist, so that when we're drawing up our plan, and maybe this is something host comply would afford us, when we're drawing up our plan, we can prioritize so that we're not going after the same projects, going after the same impact, and that we're collaborating, as was said, energizing our efforts to ensure that the communities are being impacted just as they need to be. Thank you. Thanks for the concession.
So, it's how they can drag in the commission in this. Okay? So, last by no means least, for your reactions, questions, and of course, insights before we go to the panelists for their own reaction.
Thank you very much. Second panel, I want to quickly address the issue of the CSR matter. If we go to section 316 of the PIA, let me start from what the law states. 316 states that every sector shall transfer any existing post-community development project or scheme under its corporate
social responsibility or memorandum of understanding or any other agreement to a host community development trust established under this act. The law is very clear. Any CSR, any MOU, any agreement transfer to HCDT. However, if you feel, like Madam has stated, very germane point, if you feel you can do something on top of that, nobody's stopping you. At the very beginning, an operator came to us and the complaint was that, PPI were doing a particular percentage of their profits. That was what they had agreement with the host community. I can't remember the exact figure, but it was a percentage of their profits. And computing 3% of OPEX, that would be less than what they were doing pre-PIA. And we were like, no, we cannot do less than what we were doing before. And we told them, yeah, no problem, fulfill the 3% of OPEX. And if you want to do anything extra, so that you don't go below what you were doing before, you are free to do that. So long as your community, they are okay, you have freedom to operate, no problem. You understand? So that is the position of the law. The law says roll it over into the HCDT, but you want to do something extra. I imagine that companies that are publicly quoted, you come for your AGM and you tell your shareholders that I have fulfilled the 3%. However, out of magnanimity, I have done additional 2%. They will ask you questions, naturally. Why are you doing that? You will have genuine answers, but they will ask you questions. But if you feel that will make your operations run smoothly, I don't know. It's fine, really. Okay, so the issue of ICT development, very important. It's something, as I said earlier, we encourage the sector at the inauguration ceremonies of the BOT, train them, build their capacity, and all that. But going forward now, I think it's something we need to incorporate into the CDP. So not just the sector, not just the BOT, but the MC and the advisory committee too. The question about increasing the capacity of schools and healthcare, I'll leave that for Madam to answer. The last question about sectoral collaboration. I've gotten the details of Labour Group, detail 2 to 3. We can open up the CDP of the sector that is overlapping so I don't repeat the same project. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Henry. Thank you so much. I think that you answered the question in CSR. I believe we had about 2 or 3 questions on that, so we're not going to go back to that question. I think that was a very clear answer that you provided. It's clearly stated, expressly stated in the law. However, if you see the need to be a blessing and you have the budget for that, please go ahead to do that. The questions that, the first question by Mr. Ebuka on increased capacity of schools, increased capacity of hospitals instead of building, how realistic is this? Do you want to go ahead and answer the question, Mr. Ebuka?
Yes, I think the comment was taken out of context. So I'd like to clear that. I was only giving it as an example. Pre-HCDT, when the operators were going into communities to mitigate gaps in health and education, decision. It was wiser to increase capacity in existing government hospitals. Post HCDT, the community can decide to build their own hospital and equip it and run it themselves. I hope that's clear. Mr. Idike, that's clear. So it's not that hospitals were not built, it's because of running. So it's not to build, it's not a brick and mortar. It's who is going to run these facilities. So pre-HCDT, operators could not run these facilities. We don't have the capacity to run those facilities. We're all people. So what we did with the mitigating of the gap, because what you find out the educational gaps were majorly one thing, three things. Equipment and the educational materials were not existent in certain schools. Some schools were in innovation, and some schools did not have enough classrooms for the population of that place. So what we usually would suggest is increase the capacity. State government already provides the doctors, the teachers, and the doctors in the health sector. We just to give you another example, for the riverine areas in our area of operations in those pre-HCDT, you find out that the teachers will struggle to go to those places to teach. So some companies who had those communities as maybe access communities or just those communities basically, what they would do is take the census of the NDAs that were sent out and they report to the local government at that point and give them some subvention to ensure that they go to those places. It is the teachers, they make sure that they go there. It is the doctors and the nurses who make sure they go to the areas. So that's the answer that I hope that's clear. Notes that this can be good. Then on the CSR, I needed to add something. The law is very explicit on CSR. But we're speaking from our own end, we're a corporate company that wants to ensure that that there's a need for us to know that more needs to be done in our business. It's the truth. It's not the past. You might end up doing it and it is 2%. But that's not what we're starting for. We're not advocating for it as a percentage. We're just saying there is need to remember that as a corporate company, you are obligated to do CSR. It doesn't matter what it is. It might just be something small, but it helps your brand and it helps to solidify your relationship with the community. This is just because HCDT is still in its infancy. There are going to be gaps that will not be addressed in the first few years. If you see them, please try and fix them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question is to an answer is there a way a state government can be involved in need assessment to see the project proposed is sustainable? I mean, I will let Mr. and Dr. Benya respond to that question. However, as I said, it's a needs assessment, and I believe that for needs assessment, you actually, the way I carry out needs assessment, you're free to speak to anybody you want to speak to, apart from HCDTs. You can also reach out to the local government, but the gentleman has given an example. If it comes to the part where it comes to you compromising or doing something that is against your ethics, then you can then pull out of that certain project. However, there's nothing stopping you from involving local government, state government, because the truth still brings us back to duplicity. You don't want to duplicate a project that they're already working on. You have to speak. You need to find out what is on ground. You need to do your baseline assessment. However, I'll let those that actually work directly on this kind of project, I'll let Dr. Bega respond to that. That was my own experience.
Well, thank you, Lara. Well, in our opinion, I think they're already sort of involved in the sector. Like you said, even though the need assessment is a participatory role at the government implemented activity beneficiaries, you need to do your best analysis. One of the things to check are the existing facilities in that place. Who built the school there? Who owns this particular center? If they belong to the state government, they are implicitly already in the document in terms of line of the government policy. They have to
case mechanism from the government. For the government to come in, they will not sponsor the exercise. I don't think they will even agree to do much. But time along and ensuring that certain things that they have in place are captured, and their own plans is captured in the CDT is very important. So I think we can
Thank you very much. On Seplat collaboration, I wanted to make the overlap. I believe that Engineer Kaimusid will speak to you on that and give you information. So on that note, I would say this brings us to the end of this panel discussion. Thank you very much, Mr. Abimbola, Mrs. Uzor, Dr. Kenneth, and Dr. Benga. It's been a very insightful conversation. Thank you so much.